Hey guys, Tom from Peach Guitars here. I'm fortunate enough to be here with Dan from Skindred. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem, man.
Really
no problem.
Appreciate it. How are you doing, though, anyway?
I'm good. We're at the end of a run, like a very long run, which originally I think we thought was going to be kind of like easygoing, like just doing a couple of shows a week, but we just can't say no. So we ended up doing over 30 shows through November and December. We're in the last, this is the 29th or 30th show, I think now.
There's like 2 or 3 more after this, isn't there?
2 more and then we're done, yeah.
No, that's cool. I noticed as well, I was speaking to Mikey before, how you've almost broken this tour up into little slots.
Yeah.
Little runs, like
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love going home. I love seeing my family, I love doing all of that stuff. But I just have problems like sleeping on tour buses.
Yeah.
And I get used to it and then I'm good, but it's almost like constantly hitting a reset button.
You almost want that block of...
Yeah, we did a block of, almost, it was like 2 weeks, like the last run or the run before, because obviously it's broken up.
Yeah.
And and I slept so much better on that, just doing that.
Just got used to it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit, let's start with your rig. Dingle basses.
Yeah.
How did this come about? What is it about them that you like?
Well, so originally in Skindred, when we did the demos, we were in drop D, like in the beginning of the band, we were in drop D.
Right.
Yes, exactly, 98, so we were in drop D, and that was great, playing 4 strings in drop D, and then we started mucking around with drop C tuning, so obviously it's a bit more demanding of an instrument. But it was working, it's working, and like I started experimenting with different basses and like thicker strings, and then we started playing in A sharp. Mike calls it A sharp. I'll argue to the death that it's actually B flat music. So we started mucking around with a couple of tunings. So on tour, I ended up like accumulating a lot of instruments and like having obviously I say obviously, people that don't know the band, we play a lot of festivals during the summer, a lot of European festivals, and we do a lot of fly shows, so it adds up, like taking all these instruments and you're paying extra baggage and all this, and in the end, I was just kind of like a bit frustrated, like having to take so many instruments, and I felt like I was kind of like losing my voice almost, playing so many instruments, because it just became about playing the same shape on a different instrument, and I'm thinking about it. If I tuned a bass ADGCF, tuned in fourths, I'd have an open D, and then the 3rd fret on the A string would be C, and the 1st fret would be B flat, so I'm like, that could work. So I had a bit of an experiment, and I basically, when we toured Kill the Power, I was like, right, I'm gonna practice, and then by the end of the tour I'll be playing a couple of songs, and like the day before that tour, when we started that cycle, I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it, and I didn't know how to play the songs.
Essentially rewritten everything.
Yeah, so it's like learning shapes, and it's kind of interesting, like looking at it, because it changed my perspective on a lot of the songs, like harmonically, because I think people don't realise we do some pretty interesting stuff. Like, and then when I break it down, like I'm like, wow, it's actually pretty cool.
I sort of look at what you're doing, and there's like synth lines that you're playing.
Yeah.
It's a really dub thing going on.
Like sort of that kind of thing. So it was working to a point though, because I think I'm trying to remember. I think I recorded Kill the Power on 4 strings, but then I toured it on a 5 string, and then when we came to record Volume, I was like, okay, started recording, and I had I was using a Dimension 5 string, which are amazing bass. Like I love those basses. What I was finding is that with 5 strings, if you play with any kind of like velocity on the low strings, you sort of like lose that clarity, and I was just finding that, and I was in my own little world, but a lot of the players that I sort of listen to are kind of like, I guess, like funk and gospel kind of players and that kind of thing, and that, and they play 5 strings, and I'm like, it works for them, why can't it work for me? And then I thought about it, and it's because quite often some of the songs I'm like digging in.
You know, a little wobble in the tuning as well.
And all of that stuff. So I actually, someone just really casually just mentioned to me about these basses. I just went online and I was like, what are these basses about? And then I saw there was a a shop was selling like a slightly cosmetically damaged one
Yeah.
for cheaper, and I thought, well, a lot of people want these basses, and I could have it and then sell it on if I didn't want it. So I didn't contact the company. I didn't do anything like that. I just thought I'd buy the bass, and then it was at the end of the session. I was gutted because I wish I'd have recorded volume with that, you know. But it was one of those things because the fanfret thing was a totally new concept to me, and yeah, I mean, I just really liked them. And then I spoke to them, and I got this bass, which is it is like an NG2, but they've reverted the pickups back to being like a regular combustion.
Okay.
So it's got the dark glass preamp in it, but it's the original combustion configuration.
Yeah.
I really love this bass. I always say to techs, like when we have a tech, I'm like, this is my main bass. I only swap basses if like this catches fire or something. You know, like that's the only
break a string. Change it for the rest of the song.
Yeah,
and
like
then I want it back.
pretty much. Like I just got used to playing this one, but yeah, great instruments, great sounding instruments.
I think I find a lot of people as well are almost scared by that fanfret thing. They see it and they go, that's different. But actually,
do you know what? I don't actually think about it so much anymore.
Like the ergonomics of it, it works with your hand.
Very much so in the lower register. Higher register, especially if you're like if you're playing like double stops. You know, if you're doing double stops, like they kind of do a funny thing eventually if you're up high.
Yeah. But in terms of the comfort.
But in terms of like very rarely, I mean, because I was trying to figure out, oh, maybe I could do it on a 4-string, like what I do.
Yeah.
And what I found was I play predominantly in 2 registers. Right. I try and play everything in first position if I can. You know, unless I want a wompier, dubbier kind of sound, then obviously I play the lower strings higher up for that. But then also I do a thing with an octaver that was based on an OC2. You know, based on that idea.
They've got the old sort of analog wobble, haven't they?
Yeah,
they've
got it's monophonic, and it has 2 octaves, 1 octave below and 1 2 octaves below. Yeah. And what I discovered early on in Skindred was I was given that pedal by a friend when I was a kid, you know, and I used it in different ways. And then because it just sounds like a synthesizer to me, you know, it's like, so I'd loved it, and that was always a thing in my head, you know. I love doing that stuff. I came to this because the octave divider, it generates a tone, doesn't it? Yeah. Right. So, and it's not actually pitch shifting as such, it's generating a synth tone. And I realized, well, I could have a kind of fuzzy sound, like generated from a pedal, but then that pedal can be going into an octaver, or sometimes before, depending, like, sorry, Johnny. It could be going into it, and I could hit the octaver, and then suddenly I have this dubby clean tone. Yeah. And that was the idea originally. And then I mucked around with it a lot. I mean, if you see us play, like quite a lot of the time, I love the fact that it doesn't track. Yeah. And I'll hit the open strings literally, and it kind of goes like kind of really low in a really weird way. And I love all of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
So speaking of effects, and obviously you sort of mentioned the OC2 and everything, I noticed you're using, is it the XFX now?
Yeah, AX8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, I'm just. Basically, it's kind of like a fail-safe. Like if we have problems at festivals, I've got a feed that's kind of like an amp sim, if you like, but I always go in the front end of my amp, you know, so it's the amp sound. I'll get into that as well, but so yeah, I use that predominantly for effect switching, because I used to like try and have loads and loads of sounds, and I've had massive pedal boards, like different things, but this is just, it is just the convenience of not having a pedal board with components like lead cables that can break and things like that. And it's got I was like, my demands of it are, it just has to have a good range of like distortions and a good range of like octavers, and the fact that it has almost like a octave divider, OC2, OC3, more along the lines sonically of an
it's
OC3.
Got a polyphonic thing, as
yeah, you can do that with it, but it has got a monophonic thing in it. So, and that does what I want it to do. So I was like, great. So it's ended up that now actually I only use 2 banks when I play, and I only use like 3 or 4 sounds. And like one sound is my basic clean, my distortion, distortion with a boost, the octave divider, and then some of the songs I started mucking around with an electro harmonics pitchfork. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That pedal? I love that pedal. That might be my favourite pedal.
Okay.
Like OC2 or that, I can't decide. So it's another pitch shifting kind of thing. But then what it does is it's like a POG, but you can generate a harmony tone rather than just an octave tone.
Whatever.
So I was mucking around on the volume record of like playing a note. It would play, say I was playing B flat, and it would play the fifth above it and the lower octave of the B flat.
Yeah.
So it's like a power chord and a bass note at the same time.
Yeah.
But I was trying to, like, if you listen to Under Attack, like I'm moving it around, in my head I was like, I want it to sound like Cameo or Prince or something. Do you know what I mean? Like that pitch shifted bass, but kind of articulated. The down, like kind of.
I just said because that sort of sums it up really well. So.
Yeah, like that pitch shifted bass. Thing, you know, like I love all that. So so I'll go from that, and then I go in the studio. I use the tube Nexuses because I would configure things a lot differently in the studio, you know. So I go into tube Nexuses and different cabs, try different things for different songs. But live, I use the SL. Okay. The Nexus SL, and what I found with that is I can sort of get already. I love to have like a source sound that's really great to begin with. So it's like a good instrument, and then a lot of the grit that I want, I will get from effects rather than the amp.
Yeah, you've got a solid core tone, and you're adding your colours onto that.
Yeah, because as well, I mean, I find it. For playing live, those SLs are maybe my favourite amp I've ever used, because what I find is on stages, when we play a lot of different stages, it's got this tilt function.
Yes.
On the have you ever come across that? So it kind of pivots the EQ.
Yeah.
So basically,
you can shape it to a room almost.
Exactly, and I'm like I want to know that the bass sounds great. I want to know that the effects sound great, and then let's do the the next stage. Like I have to do it in that order for me, just OCD, and I don't want to have to muck around with it too much. Yeah. You know, so I find with that I don't have to muck around with the tones and stuff. I can just tilt. I just leave it and just tilt stuff. Yeah.
So the last album, Big Things, it's a great album. It's a little bit of. I was trying to explain it earlier. It's almost like each album has its own flavour, its own voice to it. How do you sort of personally approach each new Skindred album?
I always like to feel like we're sort of pushing things, you know, because it's. I've always wanted to be kind of like a progressive band. I mean, people take a step back from it and they go, it's just like a fun party band, and I'm totally cool with that. I'm totally cool if that's what it is. But like musically, I mean, we really try and do. If you look at every record, like. A lot, you know, Union Black and Roots Rock Riot, very ambitious, you know, one's very electronic, one's punkier, Babylon's like more kind of like metal.
Volume's big guitar.
Volume's like 90s riff rock, you know, that's the way in my head. Like Kill the Power's real mixed bag. Kind of, I feel like Kill the Power's a lot closer to this last record than people give it credit for, because people just think of Kill the Power as the singles, which were kind of like, there's a lot more going on that record. So yeah, everything's kind of different. Sharp Bites is weird in its own way. It's like some of the electronic stuff that we were trying on Roots Rock Riot, you know, like it's interesting. It's interesting, like always try to do different stuff. So this last record, I would say, was more the most kind of rock. Kind of album.
Got a classic rock feel to it.
Yeah, like there's a rock feel, 120, you know, yeah, exactly. Like.
So what do you envision next for sort of Skindred? Obviously, you've got some big festival dates next year, and I know you're hitting Download, Hellfest, those sorts of things. Anything further than that?
There's a few bits and pieces, and I can't say, but it's really good. And then, but also, I really want to do the next record. I think that last one was so rock. Me personally, I want to do something really electronic and weird.
Left field.
Yeah, I want to. A bit kind of like reggae influence.
Yeah.
and more electronic and kind of out there, because I think sometimes that sets us apart really, whereas the rock stuff you just end up kind of like blending in.
And such.
So it's, but that's just me. Obviously everybody in the band wants
to. And they look completely different.
Yeah.
Country album.
Yeah. No, that's in the pipeline.
I don't know, okay. That's one to look out for.
Yeah.
Just finally, and we'll sort of wrap up, but we did the same with Mikey. If there's what riff do you never get tired of A, playing, and B, hearing? So one of your own, one from somewhere else.
I love the simplicity, but like harmonically what it does of Pressure from the first record, because it's like one.
Same song.
Did it? Because it's like 1-4-5. It's just simple harmony. It's like the first thing I ever learned on bass was my mate came in with his brother's bass guitar, playing double bass, right, and then he goes, check this out, and he had a Dodd metal distortion, a bright yellow one, I think it's the yellow one, right, and he had this P bass, and he played Wild Thing, you know, and I was just like, for a distortion pedal and a guitar, I was just like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. How do I do that? And then he was like, this is what you do. So, that Pressure is that, but it's disguised.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean in the articulate? And I like that it's based on a kind of a reggae bass line, but we kind of changed the push of it so it rocks. You know? So I really love that.
A couple of things tucked away in there.
And riffs that I never get tired of. Out of like metal bands, probably my favourite metal band is Pantera.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? As a metal band, outside of I say metal and not like heavy metal. Like I love Black Sabbath or whatever, but like Pantera, and I love. Again, I just, my ear really loves chromaticism, you know, and that's kind of in their sound. The riff that I never get bored of is probably Unbroken, right? Because it's got this cool articulation in it, but it's kind of like, it's just like a fifth chord really, like if you were to play on top of it, it's just a thing, but it kind of is so badass.
How it's played. It's
oh yeah, it's just pure attitude.
It's one of those, I'm going to walk with...
and it's just that, it's just so ballsy. Like I love it.
It's just got attitude.
Yeah.
Out of
yeah, like totally.
That's really cool. Cool. Well, thank you ever so much for having us today.
No problem.
Again, thank you to Laney for hooking us up with this.
All good, man. All good.
It's been an absolute pleasure. We've really enjoyed ourselves today. We're really looking forward to going watching.
Hey, awesome. Nice one, man.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon.